now, how many attacks has there been to date here? On the Marines?
0. Like we haven't we haven't as far as like the Jamaica area, like that's the only, I can only speak for like my area, like we haven't gotten shot, we haven't gotten attacked, we haven't got not like the IP's bringing IEDs on a semi-regular basis, but a lot of it's just like old IEDs that have been forgotten about, or the terrorists made people stage stuff in their houses and they're starting to turn it in, like that's all we find as far as IEDs. We're not finding anything fresh, nothing that's targeting Marines. Civilians are starting to open up and turn this stuff in. They know that now we're not gonna like arrest them for being terrorists or anything. The IPs go out and find caches all the time, which is ridiculous amounts of explosives and rockets and weapons in them. And they just turn it all in, they just get rid of it.
Okay. I think earlier we were discussing, or you were talking to me about the relationship that y'all have with the IPs. I believe you were saying it kind of explained why it was that some of them were actually a part of the insurgency. I believe they referred to it as something else. They didn't call it the insurgency. They called it something
the way the people here view it is you had insurgents. Those were your foreign fighters, you guys from Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, where they were the guys that were into the jihad. They just were here to kill Americans, And then you had what they called the resistance, which is the local boys, just wanting to protect their family, protect their homes, protect their way of lives, So like Marines, it was almost kind of a transparent difference to us. We saw people shooting at us and trying to blow us up, but to the Iraqi people, the difference was like night and day. They didn't like the terrorists anymore, we did, but they supported the resistance, because these guys were out there trying to protect their neighborhoods from, the Americans who they saw as occupiers. Just working with the IPs is kind of helped understand a little bit more from their point of view. It's like one good analogy that I heard was, it's the same thing as if the Chinese decided to occupy Detroit, or New York or LA, there'd be a lot of people that would be considered terrorists by the Chinese, but they're just trying to protect their families and their way of lives, and that's the way these guys are, and so we couldn't tell the difference. To them, they could tell the difference, no problem. All right, this guy's.
You say they could tell the difference. I mean, that was a problem the Americans had. So I guess the Marines, they couldn't distinguish somebody from Saudi Arabia from Iraq. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
We just saw kind of just your black and white Arab, that's what we saw. They could be like, all right, this guy dresses like this, he's from Saudi Arabia. This guy's got this dialect, he's from Jordan. These are out of town guys. We just saw people that plant IEDs, people shooting at us.
Okay, that's the Iraqis could distinguish. They could tell somebody else from Saudi Arabia, but the Marines, they all look the same.
Yeah, we couldn't tell. The Iraqis, they know who lives in what neighborhood and who's related to who. Just like any small town in America, if you're from a small town, you're gonna know if somebody from outside of town shows up. Same thing. They know, all right, this is a local guy. I went to school with him. My brother married his sister. These people belong here. And wait a second, I've never seen this dude before. Who's he? What's going on with this? So, as soon as someone from out of town shows up, they know who he is. They know there's someone from out of town here.
Okay. Was there some problems with the Iraqi populace not understanding, or were under the impression that the Marines were targeting just resistance fighters and not foreign fighters at that time?
They knew we were targeting both. What they wouldn't understand, was
and these are the Iraqi police that you work with on a day-to-day basis, who've explained these things to you.
Yeah, this is from sitting down talking with some of the IPs, what they had a hard time understanding, and made them kind of be like, well, the Americans are just here to destroy things and hurt people. Is maybe one instance, a local guy's planting an IED, Marines standing on post. Watching him, he sees him put the artillery round in the ground, he sees him you know, he sees him pull it out of his trunk or whatever, put it in the ground. So bam, he lights him up. That dude's dead. All right, just kill the local guy who was planting an IED. You know, maybe a week later in the same spot, there's a foreign fighter, like who they view as a terrorist, planting an IED in the same spot. But you know, same Marine on post, for whatever reason, doesn't feel comfortable with that situation. Like,
you mean not comfortable with the rules of engagement?
Oh, right? No, like he's just not like, he's not 100% positive that dude's planning an IED. Like, you know, so like he's thinking about, you know, he's watching them through a set of binos, but you know, he thinks maybe something's up, but he's not sure, so he doesn't take the shot. He doesn't kill that dude, and they lay the IED. The locals see this, you know, they're like, all right, what's up with this? You know, they shoot the guy who's just trying to protect his family, protect his home, but they let the guy go that's the true terrorist just here because he wants to kill people. You know, so that's, you know, like it just, like just seeing it from a different side of the fence, like, you know, they had a different perspective on what was going on, because to them it was obvious that, hey, you know, this guy was from out of town and this guy was a local guy, whereas to us, you know, we just saw two guys who were trying to put in an IED possibly. You know, we couldn't make the distinction between local guy, out of towner.
Okay, so and once again, this is what the Iraqi police here at the station you work with have told you, where they couldn't understand why Marines at one time would choose to shoot, like you said, a local insurgent as opposed to a foreign fighter, but it had everything to do with the rules of engagement, the Marine not knowing if it's actually a good kill or whatnot. Is that what they call it?
Like,
I want to make sure if I understand, and then the future audience would understand.
Like rules, like no one had problems with rules of engagement. Like rules of engagement were drilled into us. Like everybody knew our rules of engagement, our escalation of force, our deadly force. Like, you know, that was spelled out crystal clear. Just, you know, like if I'm not 100% positive that guy's planning an IED, I'm not going to shoot him, for the simple fact that, you know, I make one bad shoot, kill the wrong person, and I've just created more terrorists. Okay. You know, or more resistance fighters, because, you know, some local dude's just trying to patch up his driveway because, you know, it got like an RPG hit it or an IED damage. You know, he's just trying to shovel cement back onto his driveway, and I shoot him and kill him. Well, then, you know, his family is gonna rightfully so, like, dislike or hate Marines. Like, you know, we shot a dude for fixing his driveway. You know, so like if I know
and these things happen too.
Yeah, like, you know, like bad situations happen. You know, like you know, inevitable effects of what was going on. You know, like we did what we did. You know, like what we had to do, and they did what they had to do. You know, sometimes
this seems kind of unusual for you as a Marine who were here last deployment, as bad as it was. Except that these same people that are working with you now were more than likely a part of the insurgency last year.
You know, so you know, like, so,
it's just interesting that you accepted that. And does that have something to do with the fact that you work closely with them and you get to see that they're actually, you know,
like a lot of it is, you know, you know, all these guys knew what was going on out in town. Like, you know, they knew, like, all right, these guys are planting IEDs. This is going on here. You know, like, I can't say how many of them actually, you know, like, picked up a shovel and laid an IED, or, you know, supported the resistance, or just, you know, mute bystanders. Like, you know, we've got no real idea of that. You know, that's kind of like one of the things, you know, we just don't, like, it's kind of like accepted, like, silence between both parties. You know, like, it's, you know, just kind of a live and forget philosophy. Like, all right, you know, what we did in the past, we did in the past. You know, we're just not going to talk. Like, you don't need to know that, you know, maybe I was planning IEDs to blow you up 2 years ago, and I don't need to know that you were set up an Overwatch in front of my house trying to get me. You know, it's kind of a, you know, let the past be the past kind of deal.
And this was just a year ago too. You know, mended these fences.
You know, and you know, like once we got here, you know, you just like see each other. You start to see each other like more as people. Like, you know, like I never met any real individual Iraqis. Actually, I saw Iraqis. I kind of talked to a couple of them, but you know, like, I never really got to sit down and like get to know them. You know, and just like the little stuff. You know, like maybe one of them needs like a new pair.